Ugh.
Can you turn it down, please? Thank you. Hey, hi, hello. My name is Alexandra, aka Obsessive Filmer. How you doing? This is a different sort of stream for me. Usually, if you are new to my channel, welcome by the way. If you're not, then you know. Usually I just live stream film talks. And this is obviously not a film talk, and it's not just me putting on my makeup either. I am wearing a film t-shirt. This is from Metropolis. Gotta keep the brand going somehow. It is Mental Health Awareness Month, and it's also Borderline Personality Disorder Awareness Month. So, me and my big ideas. I was in my participatory media class, and if you're one of my classmates, hi. I have decided that I'm going to adjust the microphone volume. Goddamn. Hold on. Okay. Hopefully that's better. Okay. I was in my participatory media class, and I gave my presentation today. And I mentioned that my cause that I was promoting was borderline personality disorder awareness, not fundraising, because that was part of our project. I'm not very comfortable asking people for money, even if it's not for me, so I did my best, and part of me raising awareness through participatory media is Twitch. I raise awareness of children's movies, usually. Speaking of which, I'm trying to figure out how I can redo All Dogs Go to Heaven, which was my last stream, and it got muted after it broadcast. I'm thinking because, like, the soundtrack app that I was using, that claimed to be Twitch safe and royalty free, had copyrighted music on it. So when that happens, Twitch just mutes your entire stream for VOD, and it's a pain in my ass. They didn't tell me. And so, like, I went to play it back for quality purposes, and I was like, was I, like, muted the whole stream? Like, did no one hear a word I was saying? No, apparently, it worked just fine when I was live. So, baby steps. As I keep saying, I'm pretty new to this. I'm learning as I go. So, yeah, that was a lesson. Now, this is going to be awkward for me for a while, this stream itself. I am not used to talking about my diagnosis. I'm not used to talking about my experiences with it. Most of the time since I was diagnosed, which was 2015, shit, that's 7 years ago now. Oh my god, time flies. Most of the time since I've been diagnosed, as in most of the time up until about, what are we at now, about 10 hours ago, I was ashamed enough of my diagnosis, I was ashamed of me, and what I am, that I didn't really bring it up unless, like, it was relevant to something, or it was, with a person that I trust. And, I realized, that as much as, you know, I am uncomfortable about it, it's something I have to talk about, because it's not really talked about, especially by borderlines themselves. My feelings on the matter are not just mine, you know, it's pretty common. And if we want better representation, if we want people to understand, we need to kind of open up about it so that people understand what it's actually like, instead of the misconceptions and the stereotypes and the stigma. And part of the reason why I decided this, and this is going to be one of very few times that I mention it because I don't even like to look at it or acknowledge it, one of the reasons that I decided I was going to do this is because Amber Heard, God, that whole mess, but BPD was brought up in regards to the psychologist or psychiatrist, I think she's a psychologist, who said that she might have that and histrionic personality disorder, and that explains why she's a domestic abuser. I was reading some of it, her testimony, before I got so angry that I had to click off of it, and a lot of what she said it's not true. It's not true, or it's extremely misleading, or it's cherry-picked, and that happens to us a lot. Including, and like in some cases, especially by mental health professionals who should know better. And reading that, I became very upset, like not just angry, but hurt, like in a personal way, because that sort of thing is why a lot of us are harassed, why we're treated like we're monsters, and that's just, it has to stop. No one should have to live like this, and I am sick and tired, for my part, of being called a bunny boiler when people figure out what I am. So we're going to talk about that today. This is a 2-hour stream. Hopefully, like, I can make it the whole 2 hours. It's kind of iffy. I don't even spend 2 hours talking about, like, things I enjoy, like, All Dogs Go to Heaven. But I said I would do 2 hours today in class, and I try to be a person of my word. But anyway, just to let you know, this is, as I said, going to be incredibly awkward for me at first. What I'm going to do to kind of make sure that I'm doing something, and if I have trouble with eye contact, I'm going to take off the makeup I'm wearing now, and I'm going to put on makeup as I talk. It'll be pretty cool. I actually have 3 palettes here to choose from. Allow me just to grab my stuff, because I love makeup. It's calming. It makes me happy. So I've got the Urban Decay Wild West Naked palette, which is very colorful. I've got the ColourPop Baby Yoda palette. And I've got my latest ColourPop palette, So Flat. So I'll try not to focus on the makeup and focus more on the task at hand, but yeah, I make it uncomfortable. I hope you don't. I hope that this is going to be a learning experience, something that is helpful to you, especially if you may think that you have BPD but aren't sure yet. If you're looking for resources because you know someone with BPD, or you suspect someone of having BPD, or you're just kind of interested in the disorder and cluster B personality disorders themselves. It's a complicated thing, and most of this is going to be coming from my experiences only. Obviously, I can't really speak for other people, but I do have some resources that I can give. I don't really, I was going to put them in the description or something, but I found out that you can't do that on Twitch, so I can put them in the chat on request and figure it out from there. And if you're watching me on YouTube, that should be in the description below, and I will link those for you. And yeah, this is a participatory media thing, so if you have questions, anything at all, whatever comes to mind, you can just put it in the chat and I will see it and I will respond. Promise. Alright, so let's just start with what is borderline personality disorder. And excuse me while I pull up my notes on my phone, because I'm going to give you the clinical definition from the National Institute of Mental Health. So, borderline personality disorder is an illness marked by an ongoing pattern of varying mood, self-image, and behavior. They think that it is one or all of 3 things. That would be genetic predisposition, trauma, like childhood trauma or behavior, and also a social/cultural experience, in that, what you grow up with, and how it affects you. There are certain cultures, I'm thinking South Asian right now for an example, but there are certain cultures in which there's toxic behavior that is normalized, toxic ideas and all of that stuff, and people who are already kind of sensitive toward that stuff, or have other things that are going on with them, like other mental illnesses, it's easy to internalize that, and it can kind of become borderline personality disorder. It's very new in a way. It was first acknowledged in the 1970s, but it wasn't until the late 90s when they actually started doing work and trying to figure out what it is and how to treat it. BPD has no cure, it was one of the harder things for me to learn when I was first diagnosed. My reaction to my diagnosis was to immediately try to look up everything that I could about it, try to learn about it and understand myself. And that was a very difficult thing for me to come to terms with, that I'm going to be like this for the rest of my life. It does get better if you have the treatment that you need, and we're going to go into that a little later. But it never fully goes away, and that's it sucks, but it's also one of those things where you kind of make your peace with it. So yeah, they had developed a couple of different therapy techniques, because therapy is the #1 treatment for it. And dialectical behavioral therapy was developed in the late 90s, specifically for people with this disorder. I call it a disease in my mind, so if I slip up with that, that's why. People with disorder, and it is used for a lot of different therapy applications and for other mental illnesses, and it's really good. But it is it's still considered to be the best form of therapy. I personally have done CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, and that's worked for me. When I was first diagnosed and on the road to recovery, which is what we call it, it's more recovery instead of, it's kind of like drug or alcohol addiction. It's difficult and you kind of have to detox mentally. But when I was first in recovery for about 2.5, 3 years, my psychologist was a CBT person, and that kind of focuses more on how your mind works and your thought process, and that worked out well for me. DBT is more about kind of like social, I guess, how you interact with people and like how you experience the world in that way behaviorally. And it's just it's something I've been interested in, but I haven't really explored. I'm currently in the market for a therapist right now, so who knows. So these symptoms often result in impulsive decisions, actions, and problems in relationships with other people. A person with borderline personality disorder may experience episodes of anger, depression, and anxiety that may last from a few hours to days, which is very on the money. We have very intense emotions as well. The way that I've heard it described, which honestly, like, it was kind of poetic to me, and it's also very accurate, is someone with borderline personality disorder has the equivalent of third-degree burns all over their body, but it's all inside. And we are, especially the worst of us, we are in constant emotional agony. We just, I hide it well, but yeah, it's rough. And it really kind of manifests in a lot of ways, and you're trying to sort of kill the pain or forget about the pain, or if you dissociate a lot, which my cousin does, and I will get into that later as well, you try to feel anything, because when your brain gets overloaded with all of this emotion, sometimes it just shuts down, like it goes into safe mode to protect you. And so we do dangerous and risky behaviors. I will tell you more about what I used to do and what I do now. And it's self-destructive in a way, and like when you're in the thick of it, you don't really notice, or you don't know that you're doing it deliberately, like subconsciously. And yeah, it does last. It's temporary in that, like, in the grand scheme of things, I guess, because it does last a few hours to a few days. There are times, and I think I talked about this in class earlier, there are times where I'm just vibing, like chilling, having a good time, and all of a sudden I'm just hit with like this horrible like anxiety / depression / both feeling, and it's just like, oh shit. And it doesn't last too long for me usually, but there are times where I've spent like an entire afternoon just kind of like waiting for it to blow over. Because one of the things about being self-aware or quiet borderline is that you understand your disorder well enough to see what it's doing, and you're like, there's nothing much I can do about this, so please just get it over with so I can go on with my day. I got stuff to do. Like, recognizable symptoms typically show up during adolescence, aka your teenage years or early adulthood, but early symptoms of the illness can occur during childhood. And for me, it manifested first right around the time I started puberty. It got worse like towards the end of my teens, but it was in my early 20s that it was like at its absolute peak. So a lot of psychologists and psychiatrists are reluctant to diagnose it before the age of 18, but preferably before the age of 25, like in between that area. It's hard to diagnose teenagers because they're just like hormone balls. Speaking as a former teenager, I was definitely like, it was hard to tell like if it was mental illness or if it was just me being like my angsty emo self. So a lot of people are just like, we can't really diagnose this quite yet until your brain has like come towards the end of developing, and then we can assess you're crazy. See what flavor it is. So I'm going to tell you, this isn't just going to be me reading stuff off, by the way, I promise. I'm going to tell you what the 9 diagnostic criteria are, according to the DSM-5. There used to be, I think, 6 or 7. until the latest edition of the DSM, which is the diagnostic manual. It's basically like how mental health professionals, they look it up and they see like, you know, the template and the rubric for basically every mental illness in existence and some neurological disorders like autism and all of that stuff. So it tells you pretty much everything you need to know to make a diagnosis. And with research and stuff being so new, it got updated, which is awesome. So let me bring up that. Where did I find that? Was it NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness? So BPD's diagnostic criteria. 1. Desperate efforts to avoid real or imagined abandonment, aka abandonment issues, aka phobia, basically. It's a phobia of abandonment, and I will go into detail with these after I read these to you, because, like, it's a lot. 2 is a pattern of unstable relationships, switching between extremes of admiration and hatred. That's also called splitting, or black and white thinking. 3, unstable self-image, something I have definitely struggled with. Did the page just refresh? That was rude. 4, impulsivity in at least 2 areas that are potentially self-damaging, which I just touched on a bit earlier, such as spending, sex, substance abuse, reckless driving, or binge eating. Repeated suicidal behavior and threats or self-harm, usually all of the above. Erratic mood swings. Chronic feelings of emptiness, which I will get into because that is one of my biggest symptoms that I have to deal with. Intense anger or difficulty controlling anger, aka borderline rage. Not all of us have that. I do not personally have that, but I used to. So that's an issue. And temporary stress-related paranoid ideation or dissociative symptoms, which is not the same as, like, you know, schizophrenic paranoia or other sorts of paranoia that come from those mental illnesses. It's more to do with the fact that 99.9% of the time we have been fucked over by somebody, or, you know, family members, relationships, friends. Like, we have in some way or another been betrayed, and it's a constant fear that that's going to happen again. It's trust issues. But it's extreme because we don't do things in half measures. So this is the part where I start to take my makeup off. I'm going to be looking slightly off camera, so hopefully you'll still be able to hear me and stuff. So, we're going to start with desperate efforts to avoid real or imagined abandonment. For me, that was and still is... Whoa. You can barely see me. Lord. Sorry. I will turn this down slightly. Is that better? I can't see without my glasses. So for me, that was and still is a big problem. It is why I avoid relationships for the most part, romantic relationships. I turn into, like, the way I say it is that I turn into a different person when I'm with someone, which is why I am so afraid of getting into romantic relationships that I have stayed single on purpose. I'm of a certain age now where people expect that I'm either attached or married. And, yeah, the truth of the matter is, and I don't tell people this because it's, like, super socially awkward in conversation, but, the truth of the matter is, like, I'm terrified of losing myself to the disorder again, and I'm also terrified that getting attached to somebody means that it's only a matter of time before they leave me too, just like everyone else does. So when you're in a situation, like, usually it's romantic, but it can be friends and family members too, but when you're in a situation where you're expecting this, basically it's like you're constantly trying to prepare yourself mentally for it, and you start seeing patterns in things that are usually not accurate to reality, but you're constantly trying to, like, prevent them from leaving. Like, you step up the attachment stuff, you get clingy, you start doing things trying to make them to stay. If you're really bad on the spectrum, then you make threats of hurting yourself, or you do hurt yourself enough to kind of scare them, that is extremely manipulative behavior, and people who have BPD and use that as an excuse to do these things, I have absolutely no sympathy for. They know better, and that's kind of a problem that I have too, but I will get into that. So, fear of abandonment's a big one. The second one is pattern of unstable relationships. Holy shit, do I have experience with that one. Especially in my early 20s, like, I was never single from like the age of 17 to about 26, I want to say. I'm 32 now. And I was constantly like afraid of being alone, but my relationships never lasted too long because I would get so attached so quickly, and that is a big problem for us. We can idolize people and see them for more than what they actually are, which is something that I used to do. I used to date people who were very bad for me, abusive or just otherwise like not good influences, I guess. But yeah, they usually would either cheat on me or just push me away, or in one case get arrested for selling and taking a lot of drugs and have to go to a court-ordered rehab, never speak to me again, which, fair enough, I don't want a part of all that mess. And it was, I would be very devastated every single time, no matter how like toxic or healthy the relationship was. It was always as if like the man that I thought I would marry has betrayed me, sort of thing. I think my average relationship lengths in that time period was like a month or two. And then I would just go on OkCupid or whatever and just go on to the next one and repeat the cycle until I got afraid of relationships. As I mentioned, like, I got afraid of being in these intense relationships and losing myself, because a lot of the time, and this is a problem for a lot of us, you lose yourself in the other person. I still kind of do that to a degree. It's nowhere near as bad, but because I avoid relationships. But like, you sort of become a chameleon, and that was something that I used to kind of pride myself on. I used to say, "Oh, I'm a social chameleon. Like, I can be whoever you want me to be, and I can change my personality for different occasions, for different groups of people." One of the cool things about being a borderline, because there are positives, one of the cool things is that I can judge within about a minute or two of meeting somebody what they expect from me, what they want me to be, and what they think I am. And I used to use that to kind of adjust and be the girl that they thought I was. Like the cool girl, the sexy girl, the party girl, the sweet girl, all of that stuff. And nowadays I just kind of use it to be like, oh, okay, well, you're worth talking to, or you're, bad news or whatever. I'm a very good judge of character. And part of it, like, I have synesthesia, which I'm not sure if that's like one of the things about being borderline, because scientists have also seen, they had this theory that your mind actually, like, your brain changes. People with BPD tend to have, like, underdeveloped impulse and emotional control areas of the brain. And I do film, I don't know science, but whatever cortex that is, it tends to be underdeveloped, whereas other stuff isn't. So, like, maybe my wires got crossed and it turned out to be, like, in a cool way with synesthesia. But people are colors to me. It's hard to explain, but I have, like, an impression of a color, and there are certain colors that I know to stay away from, and certain colors that I'm like, okay, you're safe, you're a good person. I always avoid the grays nowadays. Heather grays. The worst is the dark sort of storm cloud gray. But dark red is also very dangerous for me. But the grays have been largely updated grays. But the Greys are people who are, they're usually out to use me for something or another for what they want. And, it's not about that anymore. So let's look at number 3. Number 3, unstable self-image. Oh boy, do I have to talk about that. I have spent my entire life, like from childhood, trying to figure out what kind of person I am and who the hell I am and what I want out of life. I kind of have an idea of what I want to do for the rest of my life, why I want to do it, and I constantly ask my parents for feedback, because they know me, obviously, and I kind of ask, like, is this a realistic thing? Is this something that, like, is a phase, or is it something that I can actually do? And what was I saying? Film academia specifically. That's something that I've wanted to do since I was first diagnosed and I was going through some really traumatic shit. So that is the longest I have ever stuck to any career aspiration, which means that to me, it's kind of like a sign that this actually is what I'm supposed to do, what I want to do, and what I need to do. That's like the only real thing I know about myself. I have ideas about myself which are not very healthy, and I will tell you about probably in the next symptom, which I can't remember what it is. But if I know anything about myself for sure, it's that I'm a bad person. And you can tell me I'm not a bad person, but I will never believe you. This eyebrow is fucked up, man. Damn. I am just learning how to do eyebrows, and they do not turn out well, like 90% of the time. So a lot of my 20s, as I said, I became like what I called a social chameleon, and that was because like who I was normally was not someone that I was familiar with. I have no idea if I'm likable too. I have no idea if, I'm fun to be around. I have no idea, like, if like, I'm a genuine person, if I come off as well to other people, if I'm smart, if I'm stupid. I have no idea if... I don't really see myself as having achieved anything, and I guess I have, from an objective standpoint, or at least that's what I've been told a lot. But any accomplishment that I have, such as I have had a scholarship the entire time I have been in my undergraduate program, and to me it's like someone made a mistake or something, because why would anyone give me a scholarship when I fucked up at school quite a bit during COVID. But yeah, it's just like I have no idea why someone would want to be my friend, or why someone would want to date me, or why someone would think that I'm a decent person. And yeah, I'm trying to learn how to like myself and how to like acknowledge that I do good stuff without feeling like I'm being arrogant. My hair is not cooperating. I'm so sorry. Because to me, like, being proud of myself, I assume, is narcissism. So that's hard to get over. It's a work in progress. Alright, which palette do I want to use? Goodness gracious. I'm gonna use Wild West, actually. I haven't touched on that one in a bit. It's bold and colorful, and I feel like, it's a special occasion for me talking about my crazy. I should stop calling it that. That's also like a nervous thing, self-deprecation. I do it a lot. I've been told it is rather off-putting to people who don't know me. So, where was I? Unstable self-image. A lot of people actually deal with this, and I know it's not an uncommon thing, especially while you're growing up. Like, you're not gonna know who you are, like, for certain until you reach, like, probably about 25, 26 maybe, once you actually have started your life. And, it's more intense for people with BPD, as everything else is. because, like, for us, we're constantly changing as well, which brings me into, I believe that brings me into number 4. Nope. Number 4 is impulsivity, and it is story time for me with impulsivity. There are like 2 phases of my life that I feel. There was before, which has a capital B, and then there's me now. And before, my recklessness and impulsivity were certainly in different manifestations. So I'm going to be very honest, and, you know, like I said, this is kind of difficult for me, but I'm going to suck it up. I was addicted to amphetamines for a long time, like a long ass time, and it was my way of killing the pain. I was also, I've always had a problem with spending money, but I was also, like, I would abuse other drugs too. Like, I had this kind of policy where I would just, you know, if someone's going to give it to me, that's cool. I will take it, no questions asked, which is a terrible, terrible policy. Thank God, like, I had no problems whatsoever with people, like, drugging me like roofies, doing a Cosby on me, not overdosing on something dangerous. When I was in this phase, fentanyl was not really a thing yet. But I had, like, some rules, like, a list of drugs that I would never take even once. And that was, like, meth, and, oops, that's the wrong shade. It was meth, OxyContin, and other painkillers like that. I would never do Xanax until I was legitimately prescribed, and then I hated it anyway. I don't understand how people take it to get high. I would never do heroin, angel dust, and I think there was a couple more. But other than that, it was free game. And I also went through a period, I dated quite a few alcoholics, which is part of that whole unstable relationship thing. And I would drink, with the last one I dated, pretty much every night. He would drink himself into oblivion, which I didn't do. But the strange thing is, like, as an addictive a personality as I had, I never really got addicted to alcohol. So I just, after I left him, came back home and sort of started to realize that I was sick. I just stopped drinking. Like, cold turkey, I just did not do it anymore, and that was that. I think I drink maybe once a year, if that. And I just, yeah, I never really, like, saw the appeal. It is what it is. But I was addicted to being in relationships, like I said. But that was more so that I didn't have to think or feel anything that I was, you know, that might be hard for me to deal with. So, yeah, impulsive behavior is, like, I actually drove without a license when I was younger, but I don't know if that counts. Why did I do that? I don't want to use the shade. Come on, Alexandra. I'm not nervous at all or anything. Yeah, I drove without a license for a while, which was very reckless behavior. And there are people who, like, they go whole hog, like, I'm talking total, like, hoe-outs, which no judgment there. If you need to get some, you get some, girl. And, you know, like, betting, gambling is a big problem for people with our disorder. Like, it's one of the major impulsive behaviors. Like, you know, if you're doing, like, the stats, like, gambling is a big one. So is casual or casual drug use, promiscuity, and just, like, in general, if it's something that can ruin your life, if you're borderline, you'll naturally, like, gravitate toward it. But nowadays, my impulsive and self-destructive behaviors are my spending habits. Like, I have so much makeup that I do not need. Now I have blue all over my face. I have so much makeup that I do not need. I have a problem with buying more when I'm stressed. I buy a lot of random shit when I'm stressed. And that's really messed with my finances to the point where my father actually has a savings account for me. Jesus, I'm never doing this on stream. My father actually has a savings account for me where he puts in my money that I earn and kind of make sure I can't get at it, just so that I have something, because when I move into my own place in August, thank God, I am going to have to do things like pay bills. And I can't do that if I'm like on Amazon getting a beanbag chair or something, just because I can. I also struggle with an eating disorder. I have bulimia, which is another thing that's pretty common for people with BPD, is we have disordered thinking, or disordered thinking, well, that too. We have disordered eating problems. And yeah, this is kind of a new development for me in the last year or so. I lost a lot of weight really quick. And yeah, this is probably like the worst health-wise that I could be doing to myself, aside from, intravenous drug use. It's really messed with my health, but I can't really stop because I'm seeing results. And since I'm seeing results, like, it's working. I lost, like, say, like, 50, 60 pounds in the course of the year just from bulimia. And restrictive eating is something that's also relatively new. I look like a big chungus as it is, but I used to be bigger, and I also have body dysmorphia, so I call myself a big chungus. I may or may not be one, but it slips out now and then, and I apologize. I try not to be self-deprecating where people just gonna cut my crease real quick, and then we can move on to the next one. That is depressing. It's strangely, like, easier for me to talk about myself than it used to be. Which, like, is saying something. I don't particularly lie, per se, but I definitely, don't let people kind of know about my struggles, like, that I struggle at all. I tend to do my best to project, like, this persona of somebody who has kind of gone back to school at a later age after making some normal life mistakes, like, normal people make, and that I'm doing well for myself, which is true, like, relatively speaking, it is true. And yeah, I tend not to tell people my problems or anything more personal than, like, oh, I'm sick, or oh, I had a bad day the other day because of random bullshit. Alright, so let us see what our next criteria is. Repeated suicidal behavior and threats to self-harm. I do not threaten, I do. I have been hospitalized quite a few times. I actually don't remember how many at this point. Because of suicidal ideation or suicide attempts. And, I don't use it to manipulate or threaten, but like I said, there are borderlines who do. And they are inexcusable to me. Mostly it's just, I want to die. I have gotten to where I can tell the people who I trust, like, I'm in a bad place and I'm worried this is where it's going to be, so I'm telling you myself right now that, I'm starting to think very fondly of how the kind of casket that you're going to put me in. Time to go to the hospital. But, yeah, it's one of those things where we're in constant pain, like I told you. Like, constant pain. And the only way out, and it's not just for borderlines, it's for a lot of people, the only way out that they can figure is to kill yourself. And, that's very unfortunate. Because, like, living like that all the time, it wears on you. Yeah. Living like that all the time wears on you, and it wears on the people that you rely on. Emotional support as well. And it's just a vicious cycle, really. Where did I put that setting spray? I'm gonna dip into some shimmer shades just for fun. But yeah, self-harm is also a very big one. I still do. I have been picking. I have dermomania, I believe is what it's called, like, officially. I pick my skin, like, I have keratosis pilaris, which means that my body makes too much keratin, which is a normal, like, thing that a lot of people have, but, I go at myself with tweezers, and I, like, get rid of the bumps that way, and, yeah, when I'm very, very stressed, I can do it for hours and not realize, which is dissociating, and I will tell you about that a little bit later. And, it's, like, the most, I would say it's, like, the most, like, physically self-destructive thing that I do. Well, maybe the second most, because I'm sure that my eating disorder is going to catch up and bite me in the ass, and, I've already started, like, experiencing worse, digestive stuff, like, very bad heartburn and stuff like that. Yeah, it is something that I always turn to for some reason. And, I had a really terrible psychologist once. And this is a fun story. My dad called her Dragon Lady because she was, like, stereotypical, like, hard-ass, like, Filipino woman. And, so one day I'm telling her, like, you know, I picked my skin again today, and she looked at me all puzzled and said, "Why is your first instinct always to hurt yourself?" And I'm like, like, are you serious, woman? Like, you have a PhD in this field, you practice this, and you see patients, and you're asking me, why am I mentally ill? Like, why are you using a destructive coping technique? Gee, I fucking wonder. I didn't like her very much. She kept trying to push, she pushed amphetamines on me again after I'd, like, started getting better. And so that lasted a whole lot longer, that recovery process. But I used to, when I was a teenager, I used to put salt on my hand and put ice on top of that. Cutting is a major thing for borderlines, and a lot of us have done or do it because it's a way to let the pain out. And that's kind of how I see it too. I'm gonna put some Laredo on. It's kind of how I see it too, is that when I pick, it's a way to kind of ease that pain with physical pain. Okay, I'm liking our look so far. I think it's looking pretty good. This palette's a lot of fun. I always forget that. So, what next? Erratic mood swings. I used to have this problem, and thank God I don't anymore. One of the wonderful things about being in recovery is that your symptoms change as you get better. Oh God, what was I gonna say? I'm terrible at this. So, you can go from being perfectly happy and enjoying your life to being depressed at the drop of a hat, which is something that I said can happen to me. But it doesn't happen very often, thank God, but it used to. It used to be a real problem for me because, you know, it's several times throughout the day or it's several times a week, and it's exhausting, dude. But, yeah, it's kind of frightening in a way too, because you don't really understand yourself, and it scares you when you all of a sudden are like feeling intense anger or intense like sorrow all of a sudden without anything to trigger it, and it's just like, what the actual fuck? Like, you never know what to expect from yourself, and that is very frightening. Your mind kind of becomes your worst enemy when you have BPD, and you have to be constantly vigilant if you know how. The people who are undiagnosed or, you know, are still so new to the recovery process that they don't quite have the coping mechanisms or like the skills to sort of understand what's happening quickly and nip it in the bud. Like, I feel for them because I used to be like that, and it was just alarming. It's hard. Chronic feelings of emptiness is something that I still struggle with. And that's where you just... It kind of is tied into the lack of self-awareness or self-image or just knowing who you are. I feel empty a lot of the time. If I don't have anything that I'm... Well, even if I do have something I'm doing, why am I lying? If I think too much in my own head, and that is often, I suddenly kind of feel like, what's the point? What is the point of any of this? I feel hollow. Hollowness is another thing that's kind of scary, but, or at least it would be if you could feel anything at all. And when you're like that, you're just kind of existing. And like I do, I just wait for it to blow over, but sometimes it doesn't. And sometimes, why am I lying again? All the time it doesn't. Alright. Blue. Yeah, it's not knowing who you are, but it's also feeling like your life is never going to be normal. You're never going to be neurotypical. You're never going to understand what it's like to feel emotions that are not extreme, to feel normal happy, to feel normal sad. The happiest that you've ever been, like the most ecstatic that you've ever been. Think about that for a second and understand that is my happy. And the most crushed, like devastating grief, whatever you've ever felt, is my normal sad. And if you allow yourself to, which I do a lot, if you allow yourself to, like, you kind of get caught in the anger of, why am I like this? This is not fair. I never asked for this. I didn't deserve this. And all I want is to have a life where I can be stable and not like this. And you kind of just feel hollow inside and sort of defeated. Sort of like, well, I guess this is just how it is and there's nothing I can do about it. It is a struggle. I have had all these coping skills taught to me, but a lot of the time they don't work if I'm especially bad at it. And even right now, like, I've reached the end of the semester. I am going to be taking finals next week, and then I'm out of here. But I feel empty about that too. Like, I can't even feel excitement or really a sense of accomplishment from it, because it's like, all right, well, what the fuck am I gonna do all summer? You know, what's the point of me being excited for something when, you know, I'm just gonna be bored in a different way? And that's like something that they don't really talk about in these diagnostic things, is the feelings of boredom. Existential boredom is what I call it, because it is just rough. Like, you are so bored with life. You can scroll Reddit, you can go on whatever you use, like, as Instagram's what kids of today use, TikTok. You can try to, like, enjoy a hobby, like video gaming or something is something I do. And just nothing works, and you're just bored. Like, anything in the world sounds not exciting or stimulating enough to me right now. And it sucks being kind of existentially bored, but luckily for me, I have the good luck that it doesn't last very long. And this is different from the feelings of emptiness. This is more like, I don't know how to describe it. It's more like, I don't know, world weariness, I guess is a good word for it. And I just fucked up this liquid eyeliner. Oh my god. Someday, I swear to God, I will figure out how to use it properly. But today is not that day. Part of it's depression, I think, because if you have bad depression, and if you're watching this, there's a good chance you do, because that has become more of a prevalent diagnosis these days. You kind of know what I'm talking about, because part of being depressed is not seeing the point in anything and just feeling like bored. Existentially bored. It's just like, sometimes I just kind of wait to go to sleep. Because I'm just like, okay, well, at least my dreams are fucked up and interesting. Being alive is weird. Okay, I think that's the best we're gonna get with that. What next? Intense anger or difficulty controlling anger. Like I said, I don't really feel this anymore, and when I did, it was never as bad as a lot of people have had it. And borderline rage is kind of, well, everything about us is intense, so saying that it's intense is just kind of like me beating a dead horse. But it is terrifying. And a lot of people, like, a lot of people who feel this way, they will break things, they will hurt themselves, especially like if they're the sort of borderline who turns everything inward, which quiet borderlines are, and quiet just means that you're hyper aware of yourself. But you get angry and you feel like such wrath that you can't really control it, and yeah, from what I understand, it's one of those all-consuming sort of things, and you just rage and rage and rage, and then you kind of have the energy peter out. So I think the angriest that I've been that I can remember in the somewhat recent past, I got angry at someone for something they said, something stupid and offensive. I think it was about people with BPD, actually, now that I think about it. And they made a very stupid generalization, they made a very stupid stereotype. And I tried to politely correct them, which is something that I've learned to do is when I'm online, mostly, because I don't do this in real life. But when I'm online, I try to helpfully and calmly be like, hey, I understand that that is your perception of us, but let me tell you, like, this is more accurate. Here's some resources. I hope this helps. And it didn't work on this guy. Like, this guy was, like, he wasn't trolling per se, but he was definitely looking for a fight. And, unfortunately, I left myself in that trap. Fortunately, there it is, my mascara. And unfortunately, I was just like, alright, you know what, listen. Like, I don't know what barn you were raised in by what stupid wolf, but you don't understand how human beings work. I believe I called him a blight on humanity. I don't get to the point where I tell someone to kill themselves, because I think that is absolutely disgusting. Besides, like, for me, death would be a relief, so why would I tell someone to go kill themselves? And that's like I don't want to say it's a good thing, because then I'll get the cops called on me. But when I think of that, it's sort of like a calming thing, like peaceful thought. But I did tell him that he needed to log off of the internet and spend a good few hours, like, staring into the mirror and wondering how he got to this. And that was about it. Like, I didn't really go off, but I have, in the past, I have demolished people with words. Like, one of my ex-boyfriends, this was my 20th birthday, and I remember this very clearly, which is unusual because I don't remember a lot from around about that time. One of my ex-boyfriends was being verbally abusive to me in his car, like he always was, and I finally had enough of it. And I basically went after every single weak point, because that kind of talent I told you about earlier, where I know, like, what to expect from people and what they expect from me, I can read someone's weaknesses and what really gets them, what their biggest insecurities are, and I just went for the kill. Like, I told him that he thought that he could be somebody, but he never would be. He'd just be from this podunk town, and he was incapable of, like, ever making something out of himself because he did not have the smarts that he thought he did. Like, I just was cruel, and he started crying and said, "Stop it, stop it, stop it," like a bunch of times, trying to, like, put his hands over his ears just to sort of drown me out. I can't even remember what all I was saying to him, but once you start talking like that, in my experience, you can't stop. And you don't know what you're saying, it just comes out. And it's yeah, it's something that I am ashamed of, and I'm ashamed that I can do it still. I choose not to for the most part now, but I would for certain people. Um, like fucking Sam Alito in the Supreme Court right now, but about politics, and I try to avoid politics on this stream. But knowing that I can and that I choose not to is something I guess is close to progress. But yeah, there's a lot of borderlines who deal with that like on a daily basis, and Jesus, I can't even imagine slathering on the concealer, because for me everything needs to be concealed. Something tangentially related to makeup and this, gratuitously. When I was in my early to mid 20s, like, first of all, I had no idea how to do my makeup properly. I only learned that from the pandemic. I started watching all these YouTube tutorials. But I especially was bad back then, and I would put such heavy makeup on, and I didn't really like think about it consciously, but you know, subconsciously I knew it was trying to hide my features, because I think that I am very not good looking. I wouldn't go as far to say hideous or ugly, but I look at my face and I'm just like, that is a homely ass bitch, like, damn. And so I would put on very thick makeup to sort of hide that. And it's only in the past year or so when I was learning how to do makeup properly that I started trying to enhance rather than to cover. She says having very thick eye makeup on right now. But this is different. This is different, I promise. It's just me having fun. But yeah, I wouldn't go out of the house unless I was wearing so much like eyeshadow and brightly colored eyeshadow so that they had something to focus on, like my eyes, instead of the rest of this. And yeah. Yeah, it's, yeah. Last one, temporary stress-related paranoid ideation or dissociative symptoms. And let me tell you what dissociation is. Dissociation is feeling like you kind of check out in some ways. Like my cousin who has BPD, I love my cousin so much. She and I are like the closest, but my cousin who has BPD dissociates an awful lot as a sort of stress response. And that is something that I have done, and I do still sometimes, especially if I'm picking. But she has it bad. She will lose hours at a time, and it's kind of like her soul sort of leaves her body, and she can't really feel the passage of time. It's like going into safe mode, basically. Like, you just kind of shut down to the point where you can't register anything around you. Like, people could be talking, or you could have had an appointment, or like you could have had a time commitment, and to you, like, time has no meaning. You're just kind of in existence. And this happened to me when I did cocaine. Like, that is the one time I dissociated very hard. But basically it felt like I was floating out of my body and I was staring into nothing, but like I wasn't even thinking. Like, that's the weird thing and scary thing about dissociation, is that you don't even think. Like, you're just kind of there. And yeah, she does that an awful lot as a sort of stress response. And I've learned not to take it personally, but her grandmother, my aunt, oh my god, she takes it personally. Like, she told me the other day, like, hey, we haven't video chatted in a while, and I'm having kind of a rough time of it, so can we video chat? She lives in England. She is part of the OG family. My mom's side is the American one. But I was like, yeah, sure, I'm free tomorrow. Like, you know, we kind of set up a time that I would be available. And she just kind of never called me, and she hasn't really responded to my messages or looked at them. I don't take that personally. But because I know that she has a very difficult job. I'm not going to tell you too much about her for privacy reasons, but she has a very difficult job that is a very noble cause, and I love her for it, because she's a very compassionate person whose BPD is much different than mine, but she's got her shit together. And she has a difficult job, and a lot of the time when she gets home, she dissociates. And she's also been having some really intense personal problems, so that makes it worse. So for her, tomorrow for us can be anywhere between like a week to a few months. And yeah, her grandmother holds that against her. Like, it's deliberate, but doesn't quite understand. That's okay. So let's see here. Dissociation and paranoid ideation. And I'm gonna be frank with you, I'm not entirely sure what they mean about with that. The only thing I can think of is catastrophizing, which is something that I have a problem with. Where you automatically, like, you see a situation and it's not ideal. For example, let me think. I'm catastrophizing, like, currently. So, my GPA fell an awful lot during the pandemic. I did not respond well to remote learning whatsoever. I'm part of a National Honor Society, for fuck's sake. And, my GPA tanked. And so for me, it's like, I see the situation. I know that realistically, I can get myself out of it with hard work and dedication. Hold on one second. But for me, it's just like, I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to fail next semester. I've got like straight A's this semester. I'm going to fail next semester, and I'm not going to be able to get into the school I want to go to, and I'm never going to be able to get my PhD, and I'm never going to be able to enter my career field. It's over. It's dead, Jim. Fuck my life. I'm just going to go and live under a bridge. Like, that's kind of like what it is, but there's also like doing it about people, which is something that I used to struggle with until I just became a hermit and I don't really interact with people. Like, oh, well, no, I made like a mistake, or I said something like slightly awkward, and of course now you believe that this person absolutely hates your guts. They never want to speak to you again. You've ruined everything with them, and it can kind of spiral out of control. My glasses, yo. Here they are. It can kind of spiral out of control into where you assume that this person hates you so much and you're always going to be alone. You're inherently unlovable. And for me, like, as I said, this is all my experience. I turn it inward. It is never the other person's fault. It is my fault. And that's something that I struggled with, but my last boyfriend that I broke up with earlier, it was last month. Oh, no, it's May now. It was a month and a half ago. I assumed that he didn't want me anymore because he stopped talking to me, and then I realized, even if he does, still want me, this is unacceptable, but before, I would have been I fucked up so royally, he's finally figured it out, and we're never going to speak again. I'm inherently unlovable, and, I'm going to die alone, surrounded by cats. And I mean, it's not as if, that isn't my thought process every single day, but, it's catastrophizing. You assume that, things are going to go badly for you because of this, small thing, and it just kind of, snowballs. It's insane. But yeah, it's rough. And this seems to be a good enough time for me to take my break. I kind of worked in, I knew this would be kind of awkward and weird and terrible, so it's going better than I thought, honestly. So I have budgeted time for a 15-minute intermission. And yeah, I'm gonna go engage in my other self-destructive behavior. I'm gonna go smoke a cigarette. And yeah, we'll be back soon. Hey, hi, sorry, I'm back. There we go. Yo, I just went on Twitter, and let me just tell you, do not look at the Madison Cawthorn hashtag, no matter what your politics. I wish I hadn't. So, we have about half an hour left. This is kind of cathartic in a way, I guess. I was kind of hoping that more people would show up just because, I don't know, I wanted to, answer some questions or, like, you know, kind of have some reach, I guess, in terms of, being able to talk about BPD with people who would, you know, be open to it and kind of come away having learned something. But that's okay. I don't mind. Even if, like, people aren't here live, like, I know that my videos usually get, like, a couple dozen views, which is fine. And that means that that would be a couple dozen people who I somehow, like, touched in a way. Touch probably isn't the right word, that I somehow, like, impacted? I don't know. I have a thought, and then it just... So, yeah, I said that I would tell my story, and I can tell an abridged, sort of sanitized version of it. It's not a happy story, I call it my tragic backstory. Because, you know, film. And, I'll skip the more traumatic parts. Let's just go with that. So, my story is not exactly unique, for people with BPD. It's also not... There's people who have suffered a lot worse than me, and that is... I hate to use the word privilege, but that has been a privilege of mine that I have this disorder, but I haven't suffered from it as much as other people have. Let's just try to reduce the reflection in my glasses, shall we? So, like I said, I started manifesting symptoms when I was about, I want to say 12, 13. And that's when puberty hits you in the ass. Like, if you're a girl, it just kind of steamrolls over you. And, like, I just moved from, England, where I had, you know, spent my entire life up till that point. I was being bullied really bad, too. A lot of people couldn't understand what the hell I was saying most of the time. I had a very thick accent. And, so that was kind of traumatic. My mom's family definitely gave me an awful lot of trauma. They let me know in no uncertain terms, pretty much right off the bat, that they didn't consider me family. They would never consider me family. I was tolerated. I was barely tolerated, honestly. They're all, like, stick thin and pretty and blonde, and I am obviously not. I take after my dad's family. I have the big childbirth and hips that I'm never gonna use. I've always been, like, more stocky and short, and they often would talk about my weight. They would just treat me horribly. So that was that's part of what my theory is, that I developed BPD. Sorry, my throat is, like, super dry. I would say I'm not used to talking for this long, but my film talks are longer. My British family, like, I never had warm and cuddly, like, normal family relationships. Like, my nuclear family's amazing. I love my parents, but, their siblings, like, my grandmother on my dad's side, like, we are basically polite, like, acquaintances. And it's the same with, his siblings. Like, we're basically, like, people who just happen to sort of know each other. Like, the guy that you see on the bus every day, and you're just like, sup? Don't know his name or really anything about him. But that's kind of how things are with that side of the family. So I grew up feeling very alienated. And then I was bullied hard in school. I became, like, a weird anime girl, basically. I was super into anime, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm still super into anime. I'm just not, like, cringe about it. I started cutting myself. I started suicidal ideation around that time. I was misdiagnosed a bunch of times before I finally got my actual diagnosis at 25, but I've been on medication since I was 13 for various things. They thought it was depression for the longest time. Bipolar disorder is another one. And that's pretty commonly misdiagnosed for BPD people. And parts of it are kind of similar, and I think that's part of it. But also, like, it can be comorbid. And what comorbid means is, like, having 2 or more mental illnesses at the same time. And BPD has a very high comorbidity rate with things like bipolar, anxiety disorders, depression. I have GAD, general anxiety disorder, and major depression. And, like, just, you know, because fun, because BPD is not fun enough. And so I met someone when I was 16. He was much older than me. He was 21 at the time. And that's kind of where the beginning of my disorder really taking over my life happened. He was very abusive. I dated him for 2.5 years. He alienated me from my parents. He almost got me to, like, drop out of high school and stuff. Like, I moved schools because I moved in with him when I was 17. So when I left him at 19, like, that was the best decision I could have made. I'm not going to go too into that, though, but I can't have kids, so make of that what you will. And then I just kind of started a string of really terrible boyfriends. I tried going to college a couple of times, and I was too busy partying. When you have BPD and you kind of get into a situation where you can, like, go out with people and party and, you know, do reckless things, like, that is your jam. And I did a lot of reckless shit. My grades were terrible, and yeah, so I tried college twice before I went back at 27. I moved all over the place after a while, just on whims. I couldn't hold a steady job. My relationships were a hot fucking mess. I was dating alcoholics, I was dating drug addicts, I was dating, my favorite is, the longest relationship I had aside from my abusive one was, with a guy who was, like, super into the band Fish, and he was, like, a sort of wannabe hippie. He had a band, and I thought he was the coolest thing ever. He tried to cheat on me so many times, but he used my computer. And, like, he left himself locked in one time, like an idiot, because he wasn't exactly, like, the elevator didn't go all the way up. And I found him out, like, 3 times, and I still didn't have, like, the self-respect to, like, break up with him. He broke up with me, and this is a fun story, just, like, as an aside, because it's hilarious to me. Now, anyway. So, we'd been together for about 2 years, and he decided that he was unhappy in our relationship because I was too fat for him, which he told me to my face, and I still stayed. But, so he ghosted me for, like, 3 days, and we were the kind of couple, like, we were always together. Like, I basically lived at his house most of the time. So I freak out, like, I'm like, is something happening to him? Like, is he okay? He's ignoring my calls, like, I'm calling from blocked numbers, like, that's the fear of abandonment thing, is you start, like, going nuts. And so I finally take the bus down to where I knew, like, he would take the bus to go to work. And so I get on the bus, and I'm just like, yo. And he breaks up with me by giving me a little, like, letter. Just like, you know, in grade school, it would just be like, you know, I don't like you anymore. But, yeah. Yeah, and then I lived with his brother for a while. We were friends. Like, as messy as I was not gonna do that. And, so I took it to, like, his brother, and I was just like, look at this shit. And he's like, seriously? Like, you can be unhappy with me, and I can understand that, like, you want to break up. Not everything works out. Don't do it through a letter on the bus. Anyway, I dated, consecutively worse people. Then something happened to me in 2015 that I'm not going to go into, but it was bad enough that I called my parents the next morning at, like, 5:30 in the morning, and I said I need to come home. I was living half the country away. And they came and got me. And that's about the time that I realized that something was terribly wrong with me. That most people don't live like this, and this was not normal. So I began to go through a series of intense revelations about things, like situations that I thought I was the victim in, situations that I had perceived that were nothing like that. BPD lies to you. It throws up a very thick wall, and you live in a sort of reality that is, it's safe for you, I guess, where you're the person, like, everything bad that happens to you is, from other people, or it's from, fate. I was a big believer in fate and, the old concept, because I've always been a history nerd. My parents are both PhDs, and they're historians of some sort or another, and I was really into medieval history. So the old concept of the Wheel of Fortune was a big thing for me in that time, where things, are at the top, and then they will inevitably cycle back to being terrible, and then it's just that forever. I believed that wholeheartedly, and now I know that that was just kind of, I had a mental illness. So I kind of came to these realizations, and it was just 2 months straight. I barely slept. I cried all the time. I apologized to everybody, especially my parents, and I sought help. And it's around about this time that I started getting really into movies. Before that, movies were kind of entertainment to me, but not much else. And I can't even remember, when it started, but, I was watching something, and it just kind of clicked in my head, and I started to watch movies, the way I describe it is I watch movies and kind of reading them like a book. I started looking at things, in a more, deep sense, like an academic sort of sense. I started to kind of learn more about them. I was on TV tropes constantly. And, if you look at my my phone's browser, there's, 8 different tabs for TV tropes open, and that's pretty normal for me. But I learned everything that I could about it, and then I decided I was going to do it as sort of like a minor, or just take a couple of college classes about film. At the time, I thought maybe about becoming a psychologist, or, something like that, and then I realized, BPD makes you incredibly empathetic as well. So I wouldn't be able to handle that. Imagine just having, clients, and this was my, whole thing where I was like, this is a bad idea. Having clients who experienced terrible trauma, child sexual abuse trauma, and just coming into my office for an hour a session, and I would not be able to handle that, without breaking down myself, because, I would empathize way too much. So I decided that that wasn't for me, and then I just kind of got the idea that I wanted to be a professor, like my parents, but they had always, told me, don't go into it, you don't want this, we don't want you to follow in our footsteps just to do it. And it was expected of me a lot as a child, but I kind of came to it on my own, and I call it my young adult rebellion. But, yeah, so that kind of just became my mission in life, to learn everything I could about film, to kind of teach the next generation of filmmakers and films, enthusiasts. I wanted to help someone realize that they love something the same way that I realized I love film. And that's been my life ever since. I watch a lot of movies. They're my comfort sort of thing. And, yeah, that was, my major coping mechanism. And, yeah, it's hard to explain, but, we're gonna keep to the BPD, sort of focus here, because that is what my stream's supposed to be about. When I was in my my worst times, it wasn't just having boyfriends every other month, it was also having friend groups. I would cycle in and out of friend groups all the time, just constantly, because I would inevitably mess something up and make everyone mad at me, or I would just kind of float away to the next thing if they stopped being new and interesting and stimulating. Or if, I just found something else. I don't have many friends now for that reason. I have a best friend and a couple of other people I talk to. There's a couple people at my school, and that's it. I don't get close to people. I'm afraid of it. I'm afraid of being used. That has happened so many times, not just for, money, but also, because of, I went to college where my mother taught for the first couple of times, and people would become my friend just so that they could, get closer to her and I could get like insider information or whatever the fuck they wanted from me. And I was so desperate for friends that I just kind of went with it, and it didn't like really hit me. But I've been used for like, you know, company even, because I'm fun, or they used me to make someone jealous, or they used me to like get in with somebody else. Yeah, it was sort of a long string of it, and I just kind of became afraid of people after my diagnosis. And it's something I still struggle with. It's something I'm still working on. It's lonely. It's incredibly, unbearably lonely. And this is it's an extreme response, because we don't do things by halves. We do black and white. Splitting is how I referred to it earlier. Splitting is just where like everything's either fantastic or it's terrible, good, evil, you know, that sort of thing. And so we go in extremes, and I went from being a social butterfly to being a hermit. And that's not healthy, but it was the best choice for me at the time, and I just kind of kept going with it. But yeah, I'm a work in progress, and in some ways I wish that I hadn't become so self-aware, because the worst thing about being self-aware is that the disorder still has a very tight hold on you. It will for the rest of your life. You have to constantly second-guess yourself. You have to constantly question if the reality that you're perceiving is how it actually is. You have to constantly double-check and see if your thoughts about somebody, or if, you know, you think that they're, like, doing something that is damaging to you. Like, you have to constantly second-guess that. I have asked my dad a lot, like, hey, is this me overreacting, or is this, like, reasonable? I've asked therapists that, and, like, you can't trust yourself, and it's constant. And, you know, it's, you see yourself, like, engaging in that sort of thing, especially when it comes to the reckless and dangerous behavior and self-destructive stuff. I see exactly what I'm doing, when I'm spending money like you wouldn't believe, or when I'm, you know, engaging in self-harm, or if I'm engaging in bulimia. I see exactly what I'm doing. I know exactly what the disorder is trying to do. It's trying to sabotage me and ruin my life. And I can't really stop it. That's the worst part, is when I see it and it's like I'm on the other side of a window and I'm banging on the window saying, stop it, what the fuck are you doing? You know better than this. And I can't. And it's so incredibly frustrating all the time. Like, Jesus, dude. But yeah, like, I've become so much better since I got really intense into recovery, and my quality of life has increased like substantially. I still have symptoms, but to be diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, you have to have at least 5 of the 9 criteria. When I was first diagnosed, I had all 9, except for the rage. I guess I had 8. Nowadays, I have 4, and on my worst days, I have 5. And, you know, it's gotten easier. I don't have the intense mood swings anymore, thank God. Like, I'm sort of even a lot of the time. I do get those kind of moods where all of a sudden, hi, Mindy Stein, welcome. We're like right at the tail end. But I do kind of have those moments where I'm suddenly struck and be like, you know, why the hell am I so, like, incredibly depressed when I was just enjoying my bubble tea in the library? But, yeah, the mood swings don't really happen as much anymore. I don't have the intense anger, the BPD rage. That's something that I never fully experienced anyway. But I don't have the sort of unstable relationships anymore. Like, I've had a couple of relationships in the time since I started recovery, and they ended, but not terribly. It was not traumatic, like, devastating heartbreak like it was when I was at my worst. It's more of, like, we drifted apart, we're not good for each other, or, like, you know, this wasn't working for one or both of us. Hi, Mindy, I don't speak Spanish, I'm sorry. But, yeah, it was basically just, you know, adult, normal, mature. Just check my phone, because, like, I always forget what the criteria are. I'm not as hyper aware of BPD stuff anymore. Sorry. Oh, I found this interesting article from Self that I was going to bring up. Okay. Feeling empty, we've talked about. We definitely have that problem. Pattern. Yeah, the abandonment issues. I do not have those as much anymore. I kind of have this mindset, like, if someone's going to abandon me, then they're going to do it. It's unfortunate people drift apart, and, you know, if someone's going to ghost me instead of actually talk to me about it, then that's on them. I converted to Judaism quite some time ago now, and I did so because of the strong like teachings of forgiveness of the self and of other people. Redemption is a big thing. Peace, inner peace, and it's achieved through good works and being part of a community and all of that stuff. I read the Talmud. I've read the entire, like, Tanakh, and, you know, it spoke to me in a way that not much else has. And I was looking for something, like, my entire life, and I found religion. And I know that being religious right now is, I don't like to talk about it. I honestly don't talk, like, about my religion a lot. I find it to be a very personal thing. I don't really like getting into discussions about any religion. I went to a Church of England primary school, and we had a religious education literally every day. And so, like, I'm very well versed in the Bible and Christianity in general. I'm very interested in religions. I find them interesting, like, fascinating, really. And I don't like getting into debates or discussions, especially with very religious zealots. And but I found religion, and that's what comforted me, but it's not for everybody. When you have BPD and you're actively trying to do something about it, I think that whatever you find that brings you comfort, whether it's religion, whether it's something like film was for me, that is the best, like, possible thing that you can have. Just something outside of yourself that you can hold on to and feel like, you know, is yours, and feel at peace with it. Not a lot of us really find that. Not a lot of us get diagnosed either. That they know of right now, there's less than 1% of the world population that has this. 10% of us don't make old bones, if you know what I mean. We die from our illness. And much more than that, I think it was like 70-80% try. I myself have tried 3 or 4 times seriously. I've been hospitalized 6-7 times, and there's no shame in that. I'm not going to be ashamed of that. I got help when I needed it, and there should not be a stigma about that. But yeah, like I said, it's living in constant pain, and when you're at your worst, when it's the darkest, you can't see a way out, and that is the way out. But if you have something that you hold on to and that you can feel like makes life worth living, then that is a blessing. Like, that is the best possible thing for you. And this is not just for BPD. This applies to people who struggle with other mental illnesses or just have a very dark period in their lives right now and they need something, anything. It's important to find that thing. And I was lucky in that I was able to find mine in something sort of, you know, something like film, where it's not exactly escapism, but it's also just kind of finding another story and making sure that you're not lost in it, but you're part. It's hard to explain. I'm never very good at explaining my feelings on film. But we have a mental illness that is cruel. We have a mental illness that's extremely stigmatized. I have been called a fucking bunny boiler so many times when people find out I have BPD. That is in reference to the film Fatal Attraction with Glenn Close. For some reason, she's become the poster child of borderline personality disorder, even though in the movie itself, like, she never is diagnosed. Like, it never comes up. No one says it. But I guess, like, people have decided that's what we're like. It's really not. And as I said in the beginning, I've avoided talking about her so far, thank God, but fucking Amber Heard. In my personal and, experienced opinion, she does not have BPD. But that is how people see us, is people like Amber Heard who are violent or cruel or narcissistic. And what that psychologist said, and why I want to deck her, we make victims of ourselves if we're not manipulating people with our looks. And not manipulating anybody. Like, this face, it's not an Amber Heard face. It's not exactly, front page magazine Vogue sort of thing. But I don't make myself a victim either. And a lot of us do not. We are more likely to be victimized, but that is not our fault. That is us trying to have faith in the world, us minding our own business, and kind of having things happen to us. But we don't go out of our way to victimize ourselves. We don't play the victim when we're not. That is an incredibly harmful stereotype. And we are not overly dramatic. I think I referenced earlier that there is a stigma even among the mental health professional community about patients with borderline, and people like psychologists, counselors, therapists, they have refused to work with me because of my diagnosis. They don't know anything about me, and they're just like, nope, borderline, not doing it. They're attention seekers, they're difficult to work with, and it's like, first of all, if I come to you in your office and I have scheduled an appointment, like, what the fuck makes you think I'm going to be difficult to work with? I'm actually seeking help. Like, people who are undiagnosed or who are diagnosed but, like, in denial, I guess, basically, they are known to be hard to work with because they're treatment resistant. That is for those particular cases. We are not all like that at all. But she said something about, like, manipulation. We're not emotionally manipulative consciously. We may be subconsciously. And I know that I myself have been emotionally manipulative more than once, and I didn't realize it at the time. That was part of the revelations I was having. It was super fun. But it's also just like we need to feel like somebody gets us, or somebody feels sorry for us, or that somebody thinks highly enough of us that they will listen to us or stay, like I said, abandonment, or that they will stay with us. And it's not for nefarious purposes, and it's not because we, have no conscience or soul, and we just do it to do it. Like, that psychologist, like, she should know better. She should fucking never say that shit. Because it's already had an effect on people with BPD, and how the world, especially online, has seen us and treated us. I've gotten messages when I was, when I was promoting the stream on Twitter. I was messaged and basically called, everything but a white woman. I was basically called a monster and manipulative bitch and all that stuff. And I'm just like, that's nice, dear. Thank you for sharing. Have a nice day. You can't even feel upset by it anymore when you experience it enough. I just feel tired of it, and I just want it to stop. I hate being treated like or talked about like I'm some sort of villainous creature and that we're all like, chaotic evil. It's just, that's not how we are. We're people. But, yeah, it's 9:01. I didn't really get a lot of people in here, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up. For people who are watching this and they are interested in or watch my film talks, I'm going to have my next stream sometime in the next couple of weeks. Like I said, it's the end of the semester, so I got finals, got final projects, and then I'm just going to take like a week or so to veg. Because this has been a very stressful semester, and it's a stressful time because of current events in the politosphere, because of current events in the fucking world across the ocean. And, I just kind of want to chill. So I will be back probably 2-3 weeks. I will try to get a video up on YouTube in the next couple of days, though, a condensed version of my All Dogs Go to Heaven review. analysis because, like, I worked hard on that one. I was really proud of it. I don't want it to go to waste. But anyway, thank you for watching. I do appreciate it. I hope you learned something today, or at least, like, I've kind of, like, started to maybe think about things differently than you did before, or, you know, you just enjoyed the sound of my dulcet voice lulling you to sleep. But yeah, I do appreciate everyone who watches my videos, who watches my streams. If you have any questions whatsoever about anything that I have said tonight, please DM me. I'm on Twitter, I'm on Twitch, I'm on YouTube. I don't really have social media because, you know, BPD plus social media is not a good idea. But, yeah, you can find me usually on Twitter. I do have a Reddit account, but I don't like giving it out, so... Anyway, I hope that you have a wonderful, peaceful, restful evening, that you have a fantastic rest of your week, that you accomplish everything that you need to accomplish, and that you feel happy at least once. Good night.